You step through the arch of sunlit stone, and the hum of voices fades into the sound of sandals on marble. The air smells faintly of olive trees and parchment. Ahead of you stands a man in a simple robe, surrounded by students walking as they speak, debating, questioning, laughing. This is the Lyceum, and that man is Aristotle, the teacher of teachers, the mind that built the foundation of logic, ethics, and science itself. He was called simply the Philosopher. To medieval thinkers, to the Renaissance, and even Islamic scholars, when someone said the philosopher, they meant Aristotle. His thought was that monumental. He once said, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit." Aristotle wasn't simply asking how to think or how to behave. He was asking the most important question of all: what makes a human life go well? Unlike Plato's academy, where abstraction ruled, Aristotle's Lyceum was alive with movement. His students were called peripatetics, which means the wanderers. They didn't sit still and memorise doctrine. They walked as they reasoned. Thought and motion were intertwined. He believed philosophy wasn't to be worshipped, it was to be lived. And that belief shaped every question he asked, such as, what makes a society thrive? What is happiness? What makes art powerful? What are friends for? And what is the nature of reality itself? Aristotle gave the world its blueprint for rational thought. His Organon, a collection of works on logic, laid down the rules that all reasoning still follows to today. He defined axioms, truths so fundamental they needed no proof, like if equals are added to equals, the results are equal. Or a thing cannot be both be and not be at the same time. This became known as a law of non-contradiction, the cornerstone of logic. Without it, reasoning collapses. He built logic like an architect builds stone, brick by brick, from premises to conclusion, from observation to truth. When you say all humans are mortal, Socrates is human, therefore Socrates is mortal, you are walking through Aristotle's mental architecture, and yet he didn't see logic as cold or detached. He saw it as a moral discipline, a way to protect ourselves from self-deception, because truth, he believed, was not found by shouting louder, but by thinking clearer. Plato believed that ultimate truth lived in a separate, perfect world, the realm of forms. A chair, for instance, was only a shadow of the ideal form, or chairness. But Aristotle brought philosophy down to earth. He said, form and matter are not separate, they are one. He looked at an acorn and saw not a symbol, but potential. Every acorn has the capacity to become an oak. Its form is within it, waiting to unfold. And so it is with you. Your potential is not elsewhere. It's within you now, waiting for action, choice, and direction. This was his great idea of potentiality and actuality, that everything exists along a spectrum between what it could be and what it is. When you take deliberate action, you bridge that gap. You move from potential to actual, from dreaming to doing. Modern neuroscience echoes this truth. Neural pathways strengthen with repetition. What you practice, you become. Aristotle's metaphysics wasn't just about being, it was about becoming. Before science was called science, it was called natural philosophy, and Aristotle was its pioneer. He studied the stars, the seas, and the anatomy of animals. He wrote about physics, biology, meteorology, and even psychology. He proposed that everything in nature sought purpose, what he called telos. Rain falls not by accident, but to nourish the earth. And he even described the hydrologic cycle, how water evaporates from the sea, condenses in the sky and returns as rain. Centuries before modern meteorology, Aristotle had already traced the dance of waters through the world. He also believed the universe was made of 5 elements: earth, air, fire, water, and a 5th, ether, the divine substance of the heavens. While modern science has moved beyond those elements, the intuition behind them, that reality is interconnected and dynamic, remains timeless. In the Anima, on the soul, Aristotle explored one of humanity's deepest questions: what makes something alive? He described 3 levels of soul: the nutritive soul, which is shared by plants, the power to grow and reproduce; the sensitive soul, shared by animals, the power to move and perceive; and then the rational soul, uniquely human, the power to think, reflect and choose. For Aristotle, the soul was not separate from the body. It was its form, its organising principle. The soul, he said, the actuality of a body that has a life. In modern terms, your soul is not a ghost in a machine. It is a pattern, the structure, the energy that animates you. Your thoughts, your choices, your awareness, these are the acts of living, or a living soul in motion, essentially. He believed in 4 causes as well. To understand anything, Aristotle said you must ask 4 questions, or 4 causes, as to why something exists. Material cause, what is it made of? The formal cause, what gives it shape or structure? The efficient cause, who or what brought it into being? And the final cause is, what is its purpose? Take a smartphone that you've got in your pocket or in your hand. Its material cause is metal, glass, silicon. Its formal cause, it's design. Its efficient cause is the engineers who built it, and its final cause is to connect human beings that aren't close to each other, essentially. Now apply that to yourself. What are you made of, body and mind? What gives your life structure, habits and your values? Who shaped you? Parents, mentors, choices. And most importantly, what is your purpose? When you can answer all 4, you begin to live with clarity. Without purpose, the final cause, everything else is blind motion. In Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, he talks about eudaimonia, the true meaning of happiness. And it's that grand premise that every action, or every human action, aims at some good. But the question is, what good is ultimate? Pleasure fades, wealth can vanish, honour depends on others. True happiness, Aristotle said, is not a passing emotion, it is eudaimonia, a flourishing of the soul. It is a life of virtue and purpose, where your potential becomes actuality, where your actions align with reason, balance and excellence. Eudaimonia is not a dopamine rush. It's the quiet satisfaction of knowing that you are living as the best version of yourself consistently. He also talks about the golden mean, the virtue in balance, and it's one of his most elegant moral insights. He says that virtue lies in the mean between deficiencies and excess. Every virtue, he said, is a balance point, the steady middle between 2 vices. So if the virtue would be courage, then deficiency would be cowardice, wouldn't it? And excess would be recklessness. If the virtue is temperance, deficiency, or too little, is insensibility. Excess is self-indulgence. The virtue of modesty, too little is shyness, and too much is shamelessness. The virtue of generosity, too little is stinginess, and too much is wasteful. Wittiness as a virtue, deficiency is boorishness, and too much is buffoonery. The virtue of friendliness, too little is sulkiness, and too much is obsequiousness. Dignity as a virtue, civility is too little, and arrogance is too much. Ambition as a virtue, sluggishness too little, and over-ambition too much. Each one reveals the truth that morality is not about rigid commandments, it's about balance. Courage is not fearlessness, it's feeling fear and acting anyway. Generosity is not giving everything, it's giving thoughtfully. Wit is not being loud, it's knowing when to speak and when silence has more grace. Aristotle taught that a virtuous person is like a skilled archer, constantly adjusting, refining, aiming closer to the mean. No one hits it perfectly first time, but the effort, the awareness, is the mark of character. Now imagine this: you're at dinner with friends. One person dominating every conversation. That's excess. Another says nothing. That's deficiency. The virtuous person, they listen deeply, they add insight and make others feel heard. That is conversational virtue, modesty, wit, and social intelligence in harmony. And here's the beauty of Aristotle's ethics. It invites self-reflection. Where are you too cautious? Where are you overreaching? The golden mean isn't fixed, it's personal. What's courage for a soldier might be reckless for a poet. Virtue is a living art, not a rule book. He talked about the function argument as well, the soul in action. Aristotle believed everything had a function, and to flourish it must perform that function well. The function of a knife is to cut. A dull blade is a failed knife. So what is the function of a human being, he said? To live in accordance with reason, to use intellect, emotion, and action in harmony. That is how we fulfill our purpose. So ask yourself, are my actions aligned with my reason? Am I living by impulse? Happiness, he said, is not luck, it's designed. And then he talked about friendship, mirrors of the soul. One of Aristotle's most profound insights is his classification of friendship. He said there are three kinds. One is the friendship of utility, based on mutual benefit, like business partners or colleagues. Then there's a friendship of pleasure, based on enjoyment, the people who you laugh with and go out with. And then there's true friendships, based on virtue, where each person wants the good for the other's sake. A true friend, Aristotle said, is a second self, someone who helps you become better, who cancels out your defects and not amplifies them. Think of a friend who tells you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. The one who challenges your blind spots and still stands beside you. That's the friendship that survives time, distance, and change. In today's world of followers and filters, Aristotle's wisdom cuts through the noise. Ask yourselves, are your friendships transactional or transformational? Then Aristotle talks about art and catharsis. Aristotle also asked, what is art for? In his Poetics, he said art is not just imitation, it's recognition. When you watch a tragedy, something awakens. You experience agonosis, a moment of self-reflection. And through that, catharsis, a purification of emotion. When you see a hero fall, not because they're evil, but because they're human, you confront your own flaws. You cry not just for them, but for yourself. That's why stories move us. They reveal our hidden truths. And even today, a film like The Pursuit of Happiness or Good Will Huntings does the same thing Aristotle saw in Greek tragedy. It shows human fragility and resilience and leaves us cleansed. And then he looked at why the best ideas don't always win. Aristotle's ideas cut through time, but even he knew the best ideas don't always win. Truth doesn't always triumph in the marketplace of noise. He saw that persuasion, rhetoric, and emotion often overshadow reason. That's why he wrote The Art of Rhetoric, not to manipulate, but to protect truth through eloquence. Because if the wise cannot speak beautifully, the foolish will fill the silence. So if Aristotle walked into the modern world, he'd be fascinated. Technology would be his new Lyceum. Neuroscience his new metaphysics. He'd see social media as a test of virtue where vanity and validation constantly tempt us towards success. But he'd remind us the soul never thinks without an image, meaning how we visualise ourselves determines how we live. So picture your best self, the best version of yourself, not in fantasy but in potential. Your job is to actualise it, step by step, habit by habit, choice by choice. Because excellence isn't a finish line, it's a rhythm. And if you walk that rhythm long enough, you'll find what Aristotle called the good life. So tonight, as you walk through your own Lyceum, your mind, ask, am I living in balance? Am I pursuing purpose over pleasure? Am I surrounding myself with people who elevate me? Am I speaking truth with grace and clarity? Remember, the golden mean isn't just a moral theory. It's a way to walk through life. Not too fast, not too slow, not too proud, not too humble, just right. In rhythm with your reason and your soul. That, Aristotle would say, is the art of being fully human.